Welcome to r/entitled people, where we share stories from your lives about people who think the rules don't apply to them and they should get what they want. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. And today we have 3 great stories. So subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story: a teacher is fired for not complying with an entitled mother's request. The second story: man quits job after boss questions him for taking his wife to the hospital. The third story: an inexperienced applicant aggressively demands a lead position, prompting the company to ultimately decide not to interview him. The first story is: EM gets me fired for not obeying her wishes. I used to be a teacher at a private school in my country, Pakistan. Let me tell you, the workload there was incredible. The teachers were expected to do 90% of the work and the administration took credit for it. But I guess that was how it was everywhere, so it never bothered me. I had a class of 30 kids, aged 6 through 7, and honestly I loved them. I loved each and every one of those kids and they enjoyed having me as a teacher. I loved my job, until I had the unfortunate experience of meeting EM and an EB, entitled brat. The school year passes and my next class comes over. I worked very hard over the vacation. A month before school began, they had teachers come over to decorate classrooms, make work plans, and do various other duties that we had to take care of, and I was very excited to do it all. I'm always very happy to see these children too, but it soon became clear that there are a few standouts in the class. I've seen them before, entitled children who think they own the teachers in the school. I didn't mind. I still taught them with love and respect. It took about 2 weeks before EB and EM decided to ruin everything for me. We had a lovely girl in our class, let's call her H. Now H was quiet and was one of our special needs child. We always kept the SN kids in front of us so we could explain the lesson to them clearly, and she was no exception. She was a shy, sweet, hardworking girl. She always had trouble making friends, so I made sure to be extra sweet to her and her parents. Both wonderful people. Really appreciated it. We had a teacher on duty every day who stayed after school to ensure all children went home, not just her own class. I got to be on the roster twice every month because I would volunteer to let other teachers have an early day off every now and then. This particular day, a teacher asked me to stay in her place and I agreed. I didn't mind. It meant spending more time with the children and I liked doing that. One day I was on duty to stay late and ensure all my children went home with their parents after identifying themselves to me. I was monitoring my class when EM comes over with EB, one of the outstanding kids. EM: excuse me, are you EB's teacher? Me: yes, how can I help you? EM: well, EB told me that she sits next to an R-word kid. She pointed to H. EM: I don't want her to be associated with R-word children and she makes my daughter uncomfortable. I want you to have H move to another class, because EB really loves being in your class and does not want to move. At this point, I'm livid. I try to control my expression, but it turns out that I let it slip how angry I felt. EM noticed, big mistake on my part. Well, will you have her move to another class? Me, lying. I'll see what I can do about it. EM: I don't see why you cannot. Besides, H does not belong here. She needs to go to a slow people school. I pay good money at this place and I would love to have normal children sitting in my daughter's class. She's my baby and she likes spending time with the other children, and H is just ruining her experience. Have her move to another section of the class. I know you can. I could only stare at her. I tried to look at H and to my horror, I saw her crying because she had heard everything. I felt sick and turned back to EM. Me: I'll see what can be done about it. She left and I thought that was the end of it. I immediately went to console H and told her that there was nothing wrong with her, and that sometimes people didn't understand why someone was different, so they acted badly. I made it clear she was a good, hardworking young girl, and notified her mother of what happened when she came to pick H up. She said she would deal with it and I hoped it was the end of it. It was not. EB, it turned out, kept complaining to her mother to have H moved from her class. They even went to administration for it, but nothing was done about it. Fast forward 6 months and EB turned into a problem. She did not do her homework. She bullied other children, especially H. She was disruptive in class, and when told to go to the naughty corner, started crying so the class was distracted. This was especially difficult because H started to get nervous too. One day I was on duty again and EM approached me. I assumed it was the issue with H again, but she told me that her daughter had not been writing down her homework and it was my fault. Now I checked everyone's homework every day to see if they had written it down, and EB always had. I told her so and the mother pulled her homework notebook and showed it to me. Clearly there are pages torn from between it, either by EM or EB. I pointed out and she promptly closed the book. EM: I'll have this taken to the principal. I let her because honestly, how could I say anything to a person like that? Long story short, she complained to the principal about me and whoop-de-doo, 2 days later I was fired for misbehaving with a parent. They didn't even ask me to defend myself. I had to leave the job that I absolutely loved because of Brad and IT's mom couldn't handle the fact that someone was not catering to their entitlement. I was really upset for a few months, but slowly got better. I still think about H and I wonder if she ever punched EB in the face like she deserved to be. Probably not, but maybe one day. Addition. I posted this because I saw EM and EB again. This is years later, and EB recognized me. She came over to me and was rather happy to see me, but her mom was still salty, so I greeted her and pretended I thought she was EB's mother. The look on this vain woman's face was priceless as she snapped that she was her mother and not her grandmother. I knew that. I just wanted to be a total SH to her for once. I can't believe the audacity of EM to demand that a child with special needs be moved to another class, just because their daughter was uncomfortable. And to insult H by calling her the R word is just awful. It's clear that EB and EM have no respect for authority, so shown by their constant complaints and bullying behavior. But I have to admit, I laughed when I read about EM's reaction to her daughter not writing down her homework. Blaming you for her daughter's mistake? That's just classic entitled parent behavior. It's unfortunate that your job was impacted by these entitled individuals, but hopefully you can find a better work environment where your hard work is appreciated. Keep your head up and don't let the entitled parents get you down. The second story is, quit a job after boss questioned me for taking my wife to the hospital to deliver our daughter. The shortest job I've ever had lasted 2 days. I was interviewing for a role with a company when my wife was 9 months pregnant. I had made sure to mention multiple times to the hiring manager, future boss, that I'll be taking 2 weeks off to care for her and our newborn. After the interview, I received a call he wanted to meet to discuss salary for the role. At the time, I was working as an on-call maintenance technician, and he told me I had to come right away. I was pretty greasy, but whatever. I had a job that was okay with me leaving for a brief period, so I went to his office. When I arrived, he kind of scoffed and told me this was my surprise second interview, and he did them like this to catch people off guard, and then motioned to my appearance. I mentioned he never said anything of the sort in the phone call, and it was unprofessional to do such a thing. However, as I was desperate for the money, I obliged. He told me he didn't believe I had the skills for the job I was interviewing for and questioned my integrity. I disagreed with him and 3 days later got the job. I started on a Monday as a desktop administrator. The day started with the boss showing me the facility and telling everyone that I was the new Jeremy. He pointed to a suite of closed, solid wood offices and said that's the CEO and CFO. Then he brought me back to his office where he again questioned my abilities before sending me off to my cube across from the systems administrator. Immediately, the sysadmin and help desk admin told me of how awful the boss was, how the entire IT team had been recycled twice in 6 months, and both were going to be quitting soon. The sysadmin asked what tasks the boss had assigned me. I showed him a pushcart full of broken laptops, and I mean smashed to effing pieces, that the boss wanted me to fix up and put back into circulation, including one that would cause electric shock. The sysadmin, technically being my superior, told me instead to begin familiarizing myself with my duties and reading schematics on company infrastructure. The boss must have seen us talking and summoned me to his office. On day 1, he berated and screamed at me that the sysadmin isn't your boss. I'm your boss, understand? I nodded in quiet agreement. He then told me he wanted me to install some spy software on the sysadmin's PC and the help desk admin's PC because he believed they were slacking off. I threw that USB in the trash. Day 2 was more of the same, but on the night of day 2, my wife went into labor at 10 p.m. I called my boss's phone and left a voicemail and also left an email at 1 or 2 a.m., stating I would not be in for 2 weeks because my wife was in labor. At 8:01 a.m., I received a phone call from my boss. As my daughter had been born at 3:15 a.m., I was groggy but answered out of habit. "Where are you?" the voice on the other end asked. "I'm in the hospital." "I need you to come in now," said the voice. I told my wife I would be right back as the office and hospital were only a 3-minute drive from one another. I walk into my boss's office and he's peeved. He berates me at the top of his voice, insults me for the wearing casual clothes, t-shirt and shorts, and tells me I'm late. I, being quite tired, respond with, "We discussed this multiple times. My wife was pregnant and I would be taking time off when she gives birth." He responds with, and I will never forget, "You weren't the one in labor. Why do you need to miss work?" I stood up, gave him the double deuce, 2 middle fingers, told him to go F himself and walked out. That's my work story. This was nearly 10 years ago, and this guy is still the IT director for that company. Everyone else quit within 2 months. I'm not sure whether to congratulate you on quitting that job or to feel sorry for you for having to deal with such a terrible boss. Either way, your story made me laugh out loud, especially the part where you gave your boss the double deuce. It's shocking that someone like that could still hold a high position at a company after driving away so many employees. Maybe he's secretly a supervillain who wants to take down the entire organization from the inside. And the last story is, we got a pushy applicant. I'm an office manager for a woodworking shop. There's not a lot of woodworking shops in the area, and as a whole the woodworking community is pretty small, and we're all friendly. The manager of another company, Wayne, got his start here and is still fishing buddies with one of our shop managers. We have two, Bob and Bill. It's tight-knit. We're looking for woodworkers with 3 to 5 years experience and have advertised for it. 2 weeks ago, I get a call and the guy, let's call him Nick, is peppering me about the position. I start to tell him we need experienced, and he cuts me off and said he wants the lead woodworker position. I try to tell him we don't have a lead woodworker position. Our woodworkers work for the shop manager, a position that's filled, but he keeps cutting me off to tell me about his experience. I'm simply the office manager/receptionist. I tell him to send over his resume and we'll review it and call him if we want to bring him in for an interview. Well, last Friday he comes in with his resume. Despite us having on our door since 2020, we're by appointment only, he fills out the application, keeps asking questions, but talks over our HR manager when she's trying to answer. He wants an interview right there. Bill comes out to tell him that he'll review the resume and then call him to let him know a good time to come in for an interview. Guy insists again that he wants a lead position. He's told that we don't work like that. He tried to argue with the Bill, who tells him, "I'll call you." Nick leaves. Well, it turns out Nick freelanced for us before in 2015. It was a pretty big project and he kept derailing it by not taking direction and trying to order everyone else around. He went to work elsewhere when we kept him as freelance because we didn't have any other big projects coming up. If you won't make me a full employee, I'll go elsewhere. Kind of fit. So Bill doesn't want him. On his resume, he listed Wayne's company as his last job. Bob calls Wayne, who could only say we would not rehire him. Another employee in the finishing department quietly warns Bill that Nick was texting him bragging that he's going to be his boss. Finishing is a different department than woodworking, so we've decided not to interview him. He just called. "Hi, this is Nick and I want to schedule my interview for this week." I tell him that we'll call him when we're ready for the interview. He wants to talk to HR, who isn't in until 9:15. I sent him a voicemail because I was too floored by the audacity. We just had a quick meeting to reaffirm that he's not a fit for our company culture. HR and the shop managers are still trying to figure out the most definitive way to tell him we will not hire him. Hey OP, seems like Nick really wants that lead woodworker position. Too bad it doesn't exist. Maybe he's a woodworking magician and can make one appear out of thin air. Either way, it's probably the best that you're not hiring him. Who knows what other imaginary positions he might conjure up. Keep up the good work. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.